Hello threadheads, it's Kris from Socially Awkward Stitching Society. So I have a fun project for us today. We're going to make a stuffie, and the inspiration from this came from the wife of one of my testers. She had suggested that I make lump of coal felties to go with these North Pole coal drawstring bags. So I did. I made felties for this Christmas hop. But it got me thinking about, wouldn't it be fun to make these lumps of coal into dog and kitty toys? I have a 90+ pound pit bull shepherd mix, and so I started experimenting with making something for him that was appropriate size for him. And so I found that I could make him something that would be big enough for him to play with without just eating it right off the bat. And it fits in the little 5x7 bag. So I took our 5x7 bag, which looked like this, and I put some paw prints on it. So this is available now and in our on our new website. And let me show you what I made for him. So his name's Jake. He's a rescue, and he has the hardest mouth of any dog I've ever seen. He can chew up anything. Luckily, he leaves our stuff alone, but he's pretty hard on his toys. He has chewed up the fire hose toys. So anyway, I made him. I started with this little lump of coal for him, and very quickly discovered that I could buy squeakers online, which is his absolute favorite. So here's a little clip of him watching me finish the first one. Do you want this so much? Do you want that? Okay, we gotta stuff it and I gotta sew it shut. I'm working on it. I'm going as fast as I can. There. Is this for you? What do you do? Do you say yes? Yes, please? So clearly the first stuffy was a big hit with Jake. He's my product tester for pet products. And the only problem was I thought, well, you know, maybe if I made it out of fleece, it would be harder for him to actually rip it. No, this is what's left of stuffy number 1. So once he saw the squeaker go in here, he realized he could get the squeaker out of here. And unfortunately, he has generalized that to all his toys. And so Lamb Chop has been lobotomized. The little boingy sound lemur that he has been disemboweled. And I think we're entering a new phase of Jake's relationship with his toys. So let's talk about materials. So if you've got a big dog like Jake that chews really hard and can destroy the strongest toy that you can buy at the pet store, these aren't going to last. But they're a pretty quick stitch, and he did have a heck of a lot of fun with these. I'll show you him enjoying this before he tore it apart.
Let me see your new toy. Get that nasty stuffing out of it.
Right.
Just get it out.
It's Jake approved.
I would say so.
So while it lasted, it was great. So I started wondering about different materials, and my testers were helping me to think about different materials. So for a small dog, I found out that some of my testers who have little bitty dogs, that actually this fleece is probably just fine. They often get them like 0 to 6 month kid toys to play with. And so I made a smaller size of the same designs. So if the cat made me do it, I can explain. and I'm sorry, Santa. And I used polar fleece, and these came out really well, and I think they'd be great for a small dog. For your bigger dogs, depending on how hard they chew, I used some bull denim, which is pretty tough, and I also used the heaviest duck canvas that I have on hand. Now, one of my testers used waterproof canvas, and that's the kind of stuff backpacks are made out of. And I think that's probably the best bet for a dog like Jake who doesn't know his own strength. So think about your dog when you're deciding which of these, which material is going to work best for you. So the other thing I want to caution you about is always please supervise your dog when playing with these or any other toys. It can be really devastating if a dog eats something that is not edible. And so please be aware of that, and make sure your dog is supervised. Now, if you don't have a dog, you might be interested in making something for your kitty. So I sized these down even further, and I made some little tiny lumps of coal for our cats that have a little more catitude to them. All these designs are on our website, along with links for some of the materials I used, like the squeakers that are in here. So let's learn how to make a stuffie. Okay, so let's take a look at our color steps before we go to the machine. I already stitched the first one, so I've done one of the large and one of the small size coal stuffies. So this is the Jake sized one, and this is the size for a smaller dog. I'm going to do the larger one in a bull denim, and then I'm going to do the smaller one in fleece, so that you can see how the designs look a little different, and choose the one that's best for your dog. All right, so I have stitch stop 1, which is the applique position that tells us where to put our fabric. That one's done. The next one, applique material, is going to tack down our fabric. Normally I don't add a tack down stitch because I find normally they're not needed, but since some folks are likely to be using fleece for smaller dogs, I wanted to make sure that it would work for them too, and it seemed to make some sense to tack it down. So I'm going to lay that guy right in there. Could use a smaller piece. There we go. I really have nowhere to tape it. I just need to keep it from flopping all over the place while I get it tacked down. Okay. I'm going to use the bull denim on the larger one. So I'm going to get that one taped in place just like this one. So I discovered I ran out of denim. I have a little bit left, but not enough to make the larger size. So I dove into my stash and found some heavy duck cloth. And I'm going to try that, and it'll also end up being a little test of which is sturdier, the heavy denim or the heavy canvas. Once we turn Jake loose with it to see how it holds up to his mouth. Okay, so I have my piece of fabric. I'm going to lay that over. It's got the selvage on it. I'm just making sure that that selvage doesn't get caught in the design. All right, I'm going to go run the tack down stitch. I'll come back and show it to you, and after we get that done, we can go on to step 3, which is the lettering. Okay, I have stitched step 2, which is our tack down. I left the red in so that you could see this stitch. At this point, if I were making one that wasn't going to be on camera, I would probably have switched over to my black thread to match the fabric. But you can see it just stitches around, and it stitches a little bit outside of the initial placement stitch, because when I seam it, I want, when I seam the back to the front, that line will follow the original placement stitch so that none of this stitching in the tack down peeks out. So the large dog version on that canvas is not going to need any extra support, but I am going to add some water-soluble stabilizer to the little dog version on this fleece to help support those satin stitches as they're going in. So I'm just going to pop it on here and use a little tape to keep it from sliding around while I put it under the hoop. Okay, so anything with that's fuzzy, squishy that you're using for these, you are going to want to use this water-soluble topper. So now I'm going to go stitch stop 3, which is our lettering, on both of these, and then I'll be back to show you how we put the back on. All right, that is stop 3 done, and I decided to go ahead and cut the stops on the larger one. The smaller one is kind of borderline for me because this is a double-sided fleece. If I had left them, they kind of would have just sunk down and disappeared into the nap of the fabric. But I decided to go ahead and cut them. So I've got them mostly done because you don't need to sit through all that tedious stuff. But you do, if you decide to cut stops, when you're using water soluble, cut it before you take the water soluble off. It'll help keep you from nicking your fabric. Okay, and I'm not going to worry too much about those being super close because again, those little tails, if I leave any inadvertently, will sink down into the nap. So let's take this off and see how it looks. I'm going to take this off before I put my backing on. And actually, I can pull the tape off of this because it's all tacked down. If you weren't tacked down, you'd want to leave that tape in place until you're all done. But since we have that tack stitch in there, it'll be fine. All right. I'm always just really, I love pulling this stuff off. It's kind of like popping bubble wrap. There we go. All right, so I'm going to get in here and just kind of clean up a little bit. If I needed to, I could hit it with a wet washcloth and it would take care of any remains. But with this nice dense satin font, it will be pretty easy to pick it out. All right, I'm going to finish that later, so again, you don't have to watch all of this, but just a little pair of tweezers to kind of get into the little holes in the letters and get rid of that. A little bit of water soluble, or at the ends of things like that apostrophe. Oh, come on you. There we go. Okay, so we're ready to put the backs on these. So we need another piece of fabric the same size as we used for the front, or at least one that will cover our stitching line. And I'm going to put it right side down, which for fleece doesn't matter and for canvas doesn't matter. If you had denim, you want to make sure that you put the twill side down. That's the side with the little ridges. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that on here, but the diagonal lines are the twill side of the denim and the right side, so you would put those down. Okay. I'm going to tape this in place a little bit because it does kind of want to shift a little. I don't have my Janome here. She's still in rehab, and if I did, I'd be a little concerned about really, really watching this because she's got such a low riding foot, that I don't want it to catch it and do this. Because even on the baby lock, I'm getting a little bit of that with this thick fleece. So I would recommend babysitting this step. It's a short one. It's not going to take very long. There's my back here. Again, there really isn't a right or a wrong side, but I want to make sure that I keep that finished selvage edge out of my seam, just because it's not going to turn as nicely. All right, final stitch, and then we'll stuff these. I'm going to change my bobbin thread to black. I'm going to put on black thread so that it won't show when they're turned and there's pressure on that seam line. It won't show other colors or the white bobbin thread. So I'm I shall be right back. And we are done stitching on the machine. So that was our 4th color stop to attach the front and the back. And so now I just need to unleash these from the hoop. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit part of this out so that you don't have to watch through the whole thing. But I'm going to get rid of my stabilizer. So I'm going to pull off as much as I can. Both around the outside and in here. And we're going to have some places like this. This was what this stitch right here that we're seeing was our position stitch. You remember we did that in red so we could see it. And in places where that doesn't get caught exactly by the stitch that attaches the front to the back, you may have little bits of that kind of pop up. It's okay to cut those. That's a good reason to use a different color for your final stitch and your tack down, because then you can tell what you're cutting and you don't accidentally nip into something that is actually holding things together. I've got this one all trimmed. I try to go about a 1/4-ish inch away. I don't want to get too close or clip curves or anything. I would rather it maybe not turn quite as well than to weaken the fabric along the seam line and make it easier for Jake the Giant to tear it up. So I'm going to do the same thing here on this little guy. And so 1/4-ish inch away. I like to angle. This is the turning spot that's left open. I like to angle this like so to make it easier to turn those ends in when I'm ready to stitch it shut. Now, when you're ready to close these, you know that on some things like the lining of the Nosferatu bag, I showed you how to use double stick tape so you wouldn't have to do any sewing. I don't recommend that for this because, again, you need this to be as strong as possible so that your dog can't destroy it, tear it apart, eat parts of it, etc. So once I've got them trimmed like this, I'm just going to kind of take some of the excess off of here, and that's going to be my turning spot. Okay, so let's turn this guy. Like so. Kind of push out those corners with your fingers. This is a double stitch run, so you've got some thread there. You know, it's going to be pretty strong. Okay, there's one turned. Let's turn this one, and then I'll show you how I stuff these. And if you want to add a squeaker, I bought my squeakers on Amazon just because it was quick and easy, but there's other places online you can get them from. I'm getting this there, slowly but surely. All right, I'm just pushing out these edges and corners here. And there we go, better. Okay. All right, there's that. Let me grab some stuffing. I'm going to just pull a bunch out on the work table here. This is just polyfill. You could stuff them with all kinds of things. I know people use little scrap fabric to fill shelter dog beds, so there are lots of options. So what I'm going to do, because I've got squeakers somewhere, and I think I'm going to put 2 in this one just to be generous to little Jakey. And what I like to do first is get some stuffing down in the corners before you put those in. because you want to try to surround them with stuffing if you can. It makes it less likely that they're going to put a tooth through it and be able to pop the squeaker, puncture the squeaker with their mouth. So I've got a little bit in there. I'm going to pop, yeah, I think I can get 2 in here. And I can't do this with Jake in the room because he hears the squeaking and starts trying to take it away from me. So I have to do it in the secret of my studio. Okay, that feels pretty good. I don't want to get it stuffed too tight, but I think that's pretty good. All right, I just had a needle and thread that I prepared in advance, and it has disappeared. All right, I finally just got another needle and thread because I don't know where that went, but I'm going to, and this feels ginormous because I usually, when I hand quilt, I use such tiny needles. This one feels very awkward, but it was easier to thread. Okay, so I'm just going to hand stitch. You could whip stitch this. I like to do a slip stitch. I think it's also called a ladder stitch, where you stick it in the fold. And by the way, if you have another sewing machine, the easiest, fastest thing is just to thread up and stitch it. Hold it like this and stitch it. But I wanted to show you how to hand stitch this in case that's not an option for you. So this is the stitch I prefer just because it keeps the thread kind of inside the seam and the dog is less likely to be able to chew on the thread and get it open. But for, ouch, don't do that. For Jake, nothing is strong enough to keep him from chewing through it if he really wants to. Yeah, this would be easier with a smaller needle. And easier if I wasn't trying to do it with the camera. There we go. Okay, and then once I'm done, I tie a knot, take the tail and stick it back through so that I can cut this and it leaves a little bit of a tail so it doesn't, the knot doesn't come untied. So, there we go. He's going to be very excited. We'll see how this one holds up and I will report back on the Facebook page. So I hope you had fun learning how to make a stuffy for your favorite pet. If you like this video, please subscribe for more and give me a thumbs up. So we'll see you next time.